So, good evening, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you might be joining us from. Welcome to ASRG. We'll get started just here in a few minutes. Just wait a few minutes until everybody gets in on the call. However, while we are waiting, like we do every week, I have a few questions for everyone. If you guys can go to pollev.com/ASRG, there will be three questions. The first one, of course, as always, is where are you joining us from? So please go to pollev.com, answer the question, where are you joining us from? And then you can see where other people are also joining from across the entire world. So it's completely anonymous, so that we don't keep data or anything like this. It's just to understand, okay, build up a little interaction between you guys participating in the webinar and, of course, everybody else, so you can see where everybody's joining from. So, great. Looks like UK is the first one. Maybe. Oh man, I think that's Romania. There we go. Germany. Great. And don't leave pollev.com. We're going to have two more questions for you. Kind of get going to understand how much knowledge you guys have on the topic that we're going to talk about today. And that topic is cyber security intelligence. It's going to be really cool. We have a really interesting talk. So if you're just joining, you guys can go to, you are in the right place, I promise. This is ASRG webinar live. If you guys can go to pollev.com/ASRG, and we're going to ask you a few questions. We're showing actually right now one of the questions, where are you joining us from? Kind of helps see, where people are coming in from, who's interested across the world, who's listening to the webinar. Also, feel free to text, present questions, discuss in the live chats. The live chat is there for you guys to create discussion, give questions, and so on. Please use it. I'm sure lots of people will be discussing or having questions or answers, or just use the live chat to discuss. All right. So it's a little after 6 o'clock here in Germany, so 18 o'clock German time. Let's see where everybody's joining from tonight. It looks like UK, Germany, maybe, oh goodness, my countries aren't that good. So Tel Aviv, India, US. Glad you guys are joining tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the next question. So since we have today, our topic is cybersecurity intelligence, I would like to ask one question about what is threat intelligence to you? If you've used threat intelligence before, if you've just researched the topic a little bit, what do you think this is? Is it a simple data feed? Is it a call to the CIA hotline? Can it be a document? Getting a call from Mossad? Or is it a holistic process to understand and prevent cyber attacks? So it seems like everybody's saying that it's the last one. Since I'm American, I have to admit I would probably call the CIA. So, but if you guys go to pollev.com/ASRG, uh, you can add your answers in here. So it's completely anonymous. So we're not tracking or doing any type of funny business here. No type of cyber intelligence, promise. And if you refresh, then you'll see the new question come up. So, well, okay. So it seems like there are some people answering. Everybody's answering the correct answer, it seems like. Well, at least 92, 93%. The other people are saying call from Mossad, which I'm not quite sure. But the guys later that are doing the presentation will be able to answer the questions here. So we have one more question that we want to discuss before going into the presentations. And this is, are you consuming external threat intelligence data currently? So are you, in your daily life, are you actually using threat intelligence? And specifically, external threat intelligence. And we have here the answers listed. Yes, I'm the Maverick of threat intelligence. So Maverick, the reference to Top Gun, maybe. Second answer is yes, we are using external threat intelligence. Huh? What is threat intelligence? No, but we plan to use that app. And no, we are not using external threat intelligence currently. So just give your answers quickly so you can kind of see where everybody's experience is with threat intelligence. Kind of helps the presenters see, okay, well, people understand how threat intelligence is working, how external threat intelligence can be used. So, but that's good. 36% so far are saying yes, we are using external threat intelligence. 40 no, but we plan to use that app, so 13%. And no, we're not using external threat intelligence right now, 47%. So, guys, thank you for participating. This is just an activity to get people started, to get some feedback, to see who is using what types of intelligence. So, thanks for participating. We're going to go over to the presentation again. And I'd first like to welcome everybody to ASRG. So this is, I believe, the 6th webinar for ASRG, and this is the Corona approved edition, so to say. So we have a great presentation for you guys tonight. We have Marcus and Falk from Threat Quotient are joining us, and they're going to give us an overview about cyber threat intelligence. And they've put a little theme on it. It's really interesting. I hope you guys know Top Gun, the movie from, I think it's the 1980s, 90s maybe? I don't know. Anyways, it's about American fighter pilots. So, I won't go into too much detail here because Marcus and Falk are going to go into many details later. So before we go into all of that, I would just like to introduce myself first of all. My name is John Heldreth. I am the founder of Automotive Security Research Group, or ASRG. And if you'd like to follow me on LinkedIn or on Twitter or whatever it might be, always interested to make new connections, especially in the automotive security industry. So I'm the founder of ASRG, but at the same time, I also am the responsible for product security at Porsche Engineering. So we are doing a lot of automotive and non-automotive stuff there. Always something interesting going on. So just quickly, what is ASRG? For those that don't know, I'm sure most of you have heard this many times, so I will make it short, I promise. ASRG is a nonprofit company focusing on the advancement of the automotive security industry. This is a community for you to learn, to support and advance our understanding of bringing secure automotive products to the market. We're trying to remove the boundaries that can occur in the automotive security industry. This could be communication, borders, location, finding different ways to learn, finding solutions, making good decisions. Because at the end of the day, we all have the same goal. We to keep our customers, our families, our friends safe and secure, which is something we can only achieve together. ASRG focuses on three areas of development: knowledge, networking, and collaboration. Knowledge, first of all, to ensure that we, the people working on security solutions in vehicles, are making the best decisions, recommendations, and integrations. We need to understand where to find information, learn and build up our own competencies in the industry. For networking, if you can't find the information, then having a network of professionals is very important. They might know where to look, have different experiences, be able to make recommendations. We can't know everything ourselves. However, as a community, we are much stronger. Together, we can support each other. Oops, I was a little too fast. But the last point is collaboration. Collaboration collaboration means that we focus. Since ASRG is a nonprofit, we are unbiased and offer a space where members and sponsors can innovate outside of their companies. This innovation is organized into different projects. Some of these projects include like threat intelligence, building up of security feeds, the ASRG portal, and so on. If you want to get more involved and create an impact in the industry, please send us an email at hello@asrg.io. Very good. Then, just quickly, ASRG by chapter. We have a lot of chapters. We have 22 different locations worldwide. And this makes it really helpful for us to exchange information between these different locations. Also, to if something is happening in India or in the US, to get this information through these channels so that maybe in Germany or in Romania, we're able to react to this situation or to understand the worldwide perspective and be able to make better decisions. So this is the idea of ASRG, bringing everyone together, building everybody up with the same knowledge, a good network, and collaboration. We currently have around 3,500 members and in 22 locations. If to facilitate communication between these different worldwide platforms or locations, we've set up a Slack channel and a Telegram channel. These are our two main paths of communication. So please take a screenshot, use the QR code. I will put them in the comments later after the presentation as well, so you can join. Okay, join the conversation, be a part. This is very good for yourself and the automotive industry as well. Then we also have two ways that we communicate information through social media. That's the Twitter and the LinkedIn accounts. So please take a screenshot here as well. Follow us online and join the conversation. We have a lot of great webinars coming up. So today, as I said, we have Marcus and Falk from Threat Quotient. Next week, May 28th, so this is on a Thursday, we have dynamic trust models for mobility during the life cycle. So Mirko Ross is going to be here from Aspen, and he's going to talk about trust models, how to build trust for mobility. Very interesting topic. The week after that, June 4th, telematic control unit in security with Joffre. He's at Vodafone. It's going to be a great topic. June 11th, the week after, we have ISO 21434. By example, Basti is going to be with us from Etimis. They're going to be going through the risk and threat modeling of the ISO 21434. I believe it's going to be an automotive example. Very interesting. And June 18th, attacking cars from the cloud, the API way of stealing cars. So we're going to have Vangelis with us. He's from the Pentest Partners. He'll be going through how to attack cars from the back end. And we have more webinars which are coming. They've been scheduled. So we have webinars until I think the middle of July already planned. So check back, follow Meetup, that you can get all these invitations and informations. If you have any questions, just send us an email. As always, ASRG is a nonprofit. We try to keep this free for our members, and we try to bring all of these services and resources for the members free of charge. This is, however, unfortunately not always possible. We need support from companies. So if you do know the opportunity that might exist with your company to become a sponsor of ASRG, if you see the value in it, we would really appreciate your support. ASRG offers global branding, access to exclusive content, post opportunities, and find talents. There's many advantages of becoming a sponsor of ASRG. If you'd like to become a sponsor, please reach out to us. Write us an email at hello@asrg.io for more information. All right, guys. So enough talk from me. So before we go into the presentation, as always, we will be collecting questions in the live chat. We will collect the questions, and then at the end of the presentation, we will have a time for us to ask questions. So if you have a question, write it in the live chat. I will collect these and speak with Marcus and Falk, and they can answer your question at the end. So also, one other point before we go on, we have an exciting announcement that actually ASRG will be working with Threat Quotient on a proof of concept. And this proof of concept will be that we will be putting together a threat platform for the members of ASRG, which will identify and organize automotive relevant threats and make this available for the members of ASRG. So it's a great thing that's going on right now. It's one of the projects. It's called Automotive Security Intelligence Platform. And we're working with Threat Quotient right now and the tools that they have to create this. So I have to thank Threat Quotient, so Marcus and Falk, for supporting ASRG. I really appreciate it. And in the next few months, you're going to see some new services, new features coming out of ASRG, which are going to be organizing the threats and everything. Really cool stuff. And before we start the presentation, I think today it'll be more focused on IT security. However, the same topic applies for automotive. So in the automotive industry, threat intelligence is playing a larger part in influencing decisions, understanding our risk and field, and many other use cases. So just keep this in mind and think about the application to automotive. But today, the examples will probably not be automotive related. Very good. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Marcus and Falk from Threat Quotient. So guys, please, you have the mic.
Excellent. Thank you, John. Can you hear me?
You're loud and clear.
Just checking. Perfect. Excellent. So, welcome everybody from the Threat Quotient side. First of all, John, thank you very much for having us on the webinar. We're really excited. We're hoping to deliver some valuable content, and obviously, as you said, we are also excited to work together with you on that threat intelligence sharing platform. So the next weeks and months we're working on that will be very exciting on that. So thank you very much for that. Let me introduce you to the Threat Quotient crew today. Very briefly, I have my wingman, Falk Iceman Schwendike, who is the threat intelligence technical guru. He's the engineer who will give you a technical demonstration, a demo later on. And myself, Marcus Auer, my official title is Regional Sales Manager. I don't like that title because people are thinking of drinking coffee and playing golf. I have a huge technical background. I see myself more as a threat intelligence advisor, helping people and helping companies to build up a cyber threat intelligence program and get value out of it. Okay, so as before every good mission, we will enter the briefing room, what it will be about today. So first of all, I will say a couple of words about threat intelligence in general. Why do we need threat intelligence, and some of the challenges that we see? Then obviously what everyone is questioning, why Top Gun? What does Top Gun has to do with threat intelligence? And I'm going to talk about that. We will talk about a process that some of you might have heard of, the OODA loop, coming from some of you might have a military background. We will see what that will be about. Then we have a jump back into data versus threat intelligence. What's the difference? What turns threat data into threat intelligence that we actually can use and make it actionable in our environment? We will talk about some more challenges in cyber threat intelligence, and then we will start to see how we can apply the OODA loop process to turn CTI into a holistic process and make CTI your own. What CTI your own means, I will explain a bit later on. And finally, I will hand over the flight stick to a wingman, Iceman, who will give you a live demo. Okay, so why do you need threat intelligence? John, you were asking the question, what is threat intelligence? So in essence, threat intelligence and why companies are starting to think about using threat intelligence is we want to be faster than our enemies, than our attackers, right? In essence, threat intelligence is about gathering information about attackers, about their behaviors or TTPs, techniques, procedures, as it's called in that area. We want to learn about indicators of compromise, vulnerabilities that are attacked, IP addresses where our hackers coming from, etc., etc. And we want to use this information for two things. One is to faster detect threats in our networks, and two, which is the ultimate goal, is to prepare myself for an attack so I can make changes to my network or to my system before the attack hits me and I got damage. Now, while threat intelligence in the cyber world is a very new thing, and as I said, companies are just starting to think about how we can incorporate that information and what kind of value we can get out of it. threat intelligence actually is something that is used already for decades and even hundreds of years. And a good example I'm always bringing up are intelligence agencies that you all know, which is the German BND and the CIA and the Mossad and all the intelligence agencies. They are doing this since decades. So what are they doing? They are gathering information about potential threats that could threaten a certain country. They are gathering the information. Then they are analyzing the information. Is this a real threat? And do we need to do something? And if they decide this is a real threat, they disseminate this information to other executive powers like the SWAT teams or the police force in order to, in best case, prevent the attack. And now what we're trying is to apply exactly that scheme, that process into the cyber world. And this is why Threat Quotient actually was founded, and our platform that you will see in a minute was built. So the problem, or one of the problems, I will talk about challenges a bit later on, but one of the biggest problems is that most people see threat intelligence as a feed, right, as the data itself. Now, while data is obviously the foundation of threat intelligence, our view is that threat intelligence is more a holistic process to make it to make CTI your own. And talking about the process, I will now make the transition to Top Gun. So why Top Gun? Why did we name the webinar Cyber Threat Intelligence Top Gun style? First of all, let me give you a definition what Top Gun means. And I have to say, the first time I heard the term Top Gun was, as John said before, from the 1980s movie. And I thought Top Gun was always related to military or pilots or fighter jets. But Top Gun is a general definition in a slang, which is a person who is the best of the best in a particular field. So this person is called the Top Gun, whether he is a pilot or someone else. If you are a Top Gun, you are the best of the best in your field. And I found this really interesting because in cybersecurity, we obviously want to become the best of the best, and we want to become better than our enemy. So this was a kind of a relation I found out later on. And the second definition is definitely an ace fighter pilot. And today, I would like to introduce you to one of these aces in flying fighter planes, which is Colonel John Richard Boyd. Boyd was obviously one of the best pilots in the U.S. Air Force, but he was also a military strategist, and he became an instructor later on. And by instructing his people to become the best of the best in a dogfight, so in air-to-air combats, he thought of a new and structured way to do that and come up with a process, which he called the OODA loop. Now, the OODA loop is a process that consists, in essence, of 4 parts, which is observe, orient, decide, and act, right? So this is the process he invented, and the OODA loop is coming from the military, but is nowadays applied to many other spaces. And as I said, Threat Quotient, thinking that threat intelligence is a process, we adopted this process and we are following it. Now let's have a deeper look. What are the parts of this process saying? What does that mean? So the process starts with the observation part. So the observation part is, as I already said, gathering information. I need to gather information from various sources. So outside information, so information that's unfolding from the circumstances. This is where I get my information. If I have enough information, this information is fed forward to the next step of the process, which is orient. And in this phase of the process, the data, the information that was gathered is now analyzed. It is analyzed and it is also correlated with generic information I have, but also, and that's very important, with information from past experiences, right? So the data is correlated and analyzed. And once I have analyzed and correlated the data, I will feed it forward to the next step, which is the decision process. So the outcome of the analysis is a decision. What do I need to do? And the final part is the act process, where I execute what I have decided. And to close the loop, and this is a very essential part, what Boyd said, the information that's coming out of an action needs to be fed back as new information into the observation process, right? Because every time you do something, there's something coming out. And this new information, you need to incorporate again in this whole process as new information. But the feedback, the lesson learned, must also be fed back, fed into the past experiences, right? The lessons learned. And Boyd said, if you to his pilots, if you can get through this loop faster than your enemy, you will win. Otherwise, you will lose. So the question is now, how can we apply this process to cyber threat intelligence, and what's the actual value? Before we do that, let's go back to threat data. And as I said before, threat data is the foundation, but not all threat data is threat intelligence, right? A simple IOC, indicator of compromise, as it's called, like an IP address, without further information. This is not intelligence. This is raw threat data that I cannot work with. I need more information. So what we call it, what's the art of turning threat data into threat intelligence? There are three components that must be present all time. So first, the data that you are getting must be accurate. So the information must come from a reliable source. It must be detailed enough and with enough context. The second one is relevance. So does this information, does this threat apply to your business, to your mission, to your parts that you're using, right? And the last one is timeliness. Do you receive the information with enough time to do something about it? If you have these three factors, you are actionable. You can do something with this data, and you have now intelligence. If one of these parts is missing, you don't have intelligence and you cannot act on it. Because if the data is relevant for you and it comes in timely, but it's not accurate, you will derive the false decisions. If the data is accurate and comes in timely, but it's not relevant for you, well, you are wasting your valuable time. And if the data is accurate and relevant, but doesn't come in timely, well, you simply do not have enough time to act on it. So these three parts, accuracy, relevance, timeliness, must exist all the time in order to get value out of threat data and out of threat intelligence. So I said before, we have a couple of challenges in CTI, and one is that threat intelligence is seen as a simple feat, but there are a couple of others. Let's look back at, or let's go back to fighter pilots and how they are dealing with threat intel. So the fighter pilot, they have a couple of advantages. First of all, they are using multiple sources simultaneously, right? So they are getting information from the visuals. Where's my opponent? What kind of flight maneuvers does my opponent do? What are the weather conditions? Where's the sun? Where's the clouds? They are getting information also maybe from the headquarter via radio. They are getting information via the telemetry data of their plane. So they have multiple sources, but their advantage is they only have the right and the relevant data for this specific situation. If the pilot would get information from the headquarter over the radio that there was a bombardment of an airplane 500 kilometers away, this information would not be relevant for the pilot in this situation. It would distract him from his mission. It would be noise, and it would possibly be lethal, right? So the pilot has multiple sources, but the information is right and relevant. The second thing is that the pilot has the power to process the data instantly in his brain. This is where the pilots are trained on, right? It is extremely hard, and certainly not everyone can do that. But it is that power to gather that amount of information at that moment, process this, and derive the right action in this very moment. And the last one is pilots, by going through this training again and again, and by going through this OODA loop again and again, they are building up a long-term knowledge base in their brains. They can refer back to what I mentioned before, the experiences from the past, what worked in the past. Can I do the same now, or do I need to do something? So they have a repository in their brains that they always can refer to. So, as I said, this is an extremely hard job, and not everyone can do it, but it is working. How does the opposite side look like? In what situation are we in cyber threat intel? So, first of all, we will have to use multiple sources, and I will talk about that a bit later on, and you will also see that later on in the demo. So, we need to use multiple data sources to get enough data, and most importantly, not to miss any imminent threat that's potentially targeting us. So we also have to use multiple sources, but most of the data, especially when we are talking about free feeds, OSINT feeds, they are not relevant to me. And in reality, what we see is that around 95 to 98% of the threat data that's coming from a free feed is not relevant to a specific mission or a specific company. A free feed, an OSINT feed, is a great source, but they are giving you the global overview, what's out there. So the challenge that companies are not really doing now is to find a way to filter out these relevant threats. The second problem is we are not having a central place for processing threat intel. Obviously, what we want to do is take the data and transfer the threat intelligence data into my infrastructure and have tools that are looking, for example, for indicators of compromise, like my SIEM, right? But the problem is today we have multiple technologies who can benefit from threat intelligence data. So companies are struggling to decide, where do I put my threat intel, in my threat intelligence? Do I just put it in the SIEM? Do I put it in my SOAR orchestration, my firewalls, my endpoints? Do I put it everywhere? So there's a lot of confusion, and nothing really makes sense at the moment. And the last one is, we don't have a long-term and central repository as the fighter pilots are having. Information that we are consuming at the moment, and I heard, John, you said that there are some people who are using threat intelligence. I would be interested to have maybe a deeper conversation how they are using threat intelligence. So what we are normally seeing is that they are taking the data and pushing the data to their infrastructure, to their SIEM. The problem is, once I pushed it, the data is gone. I do not have a central repository, and I'm not building up a long-term brain where I also can incorporate the lessons learned from attacks in the past that I can use in the future. So a couple of challenges that we have in cyber threat intel, and this is not really working. And this is why even we are seeing, TI projects failing, because companies can't cope with that issues, and then they are not seeing the value that they could get out of threat intel. So when we are thinking about help, we are thinking about a technology, we are thinking about a platform by which we could overcome these challenges. So what functions would a platform need in order to get value out of threat intelligence data? And I'm going through this very quickly, so we have time to go a bit deeper in the platform and see the demo. So first of all, the platform must be able to ingest threat data from any source in any format. As I said, we will have multiple sources, and the information will come in different formats, right? So there are commercial threat intelligence feed providers out there, and they might give you an API to their web API to get the data. Some of them are using already the normalized sticks format. Sticks might say something to you. So another source could send the data in sticks. I might have emails that are delivering this information. I have PDFs. I might use a Slack channel to exchange threat information, and so on. So the platform must be able to, regardless of the source, regardless how many sources, and regardless of the format, to ingest the data. The second thing is it must be local and on-premise, because CTI will be your own. And it will be very specific for the automotive security industry. And that's what John said, is it's very different from the normal IT world. You have different components, you have OT environment, you have an IoT environment, etc. So also the threat data that you want to look at will be very different from the IT world. So it must be local, it must be on-premise, so you can get the right data and configure the data correctly to make use out of it. It has to be, it has to act as a long-term brain, right? I would like to keep a long-term repository, and so I can go back and say, what happened half a year ago? And what did we do at that time? And can we use that information for a threat that's occurring today, right? It must be the central brain. It has to enrich and prioritize threat data based on your business and environment. So it has to have the ability to eliminate the noise, because otherwise you will be swamped. If for those of you who are already using OSINT feeds, maybe you know you get a lot of data, and you are getting hundreds, if not millions, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of indicators. And now the problem is of sifting through this massive amount of data to find the needle in the haystack. You can't do that manually. You need a platform that helps you to automatically prioritize threat data based on your business mission network, as I already said. And so the platform must be able to automatically adjust priority as new information comes in. And it has to have the ability to integrate into tools that you are using internally, like CM technologies, vulnerability assessment tools, orchestration platform, whatever you are using to detect, for example, vulnerabilities. We have to have the ability to integrate into those tools, and also in your processes. So what would a platform look like? Let me go through a high-level description of the ThreatQ platform, and then we do, as I assume we have some technical people on the call, we do a bit of a deeper dive in the logical architecture. So what would a platform look like? First of all, it has to be integrated, and it has to have different layers performing different tasks and different processes. Now, coming back to the OODA loop, as I said before, the first and most important part is the observe part, is gathering information. So in the platform, this would be the data management layer. Here, data from feeds, intelligence or threat data feeds, whether it's commercial OSINT, whether you have a MISP sharing community, MITRE attack information, MITRE might already say something to you. We have information that's coming in from government authorities. We have sharing communities. We have ISACs. So these are the multiple feed sources we will use. So the platform must have the ability to connect to these feeds and take the data automatically, right? First step. The second step would be the orient phase. And this in our platform is the analytics layer. Here, the data will be correlated, it will be analyzed, and most importantly, this is the part where the prioritization process takes place. So here you will have the ability to filter out the noise and highlight specific threats that are relevant to your components, to your business, to your network. The next part, following the OODA loop, is the decide part. Or in our platform, it's the operations layer. Here, I make the decision, what do I want to do with this relevant and prioritized threat data? Do I want to push it to my infrastructure indicators, for example, to see do we see something in the network, or do I need to start a collaboration process with a colleague to do a deeper investigation, connecting the dots and get a better understanding what kind of threat is this and what kind of these actions we need to derive from it. And the final part is the act part. And the action is either done by your technologies. I talked about that already. So we have technology, a lot of technologies out there that benefit from threat intelligence data. Now, the platform has the ability to integrate into all these tools. So we are supporting over 80 different vendors from malware analysis tools, vulnerability management, CMSOAR, EDR, etc., etc. Whatever tool you are using to find threats in your network or to more analyze the threat, we can integrate into that. But the action is not always done by technology. The human factor is obviously very relevant. So this platform will act as the central repository, the central platform for the whole cyber security team. And we are supporting and optimizing processes in SOCs, in incident response, in for the threat analyst, for the threat hunter, etc., etc. And one of the biggest advantages is we are breaking down data silos. It's one single platform, it's one database where you have all the threat information that you need to perform a response or a deeper analysis. So let's deep dive into the platform. I hope it's not too technical. Those who are technically saying, yeah, let's skip this blah blah and tell me how the platform works. So let's go into the logical architecture. Let's start again with the data sources. I already talked a lot about that. Just to summarize, we will have multiple sources. We will have sources where data comes in different format. It's unavoidable to get that subset ultimately of threat data that we want to work with. So, and this is where the job of the ThreatQ platform starts. So, I think I didn't mention it. What is ThreatQ? What is the ThreatQ platform? It's software. It's a software that sits locally in your network. You can get it as a virtual appliance, as software that you installed on your own Linux or CentOS server. It is local. So there's no cloud services around it. And just to make it clear, if it's not already, Threat Quotient is not a threat data provider. We don't have threat data at all. We are just developing the platform for you to better work with any kind of threat data source. So this is where the job starts. ThreatQ has connectors out of the box to pretty much any threat data feed that's out there. So the platform comes with over 200 connectors to any commercial threat feed, to pretty much any OSINT feed. We have an integration into MISP. MISP, for those who are not familiar with the terminology, MISP stands for Malware Information Sharing Platform. It's a great way of sharing threat data, but it's not a good platform to do the threat intelligence management and do the scoring. But MISP could be a good way moving forward, and maybe I'm talking too lot, but MISP could be a good way of sharing threat data from the central threat intelligence platform that we are just evaluating to get the data in your local network. But this is something we will talk once we are there. So talked a lot about that. The platform comes with connectors out of the box. We are connecting to any source you want to use. And now the data is flowing into our platform. As I said, it's local, it's on premise. So the data flows in. And the first three things that we are doing is we are first normalizing the data. As I said, one of the biggest issues is that the data could come in different formats, different protocols. It can come in structured or worst case unstructured via a PDF document. We don't care. We can take any data. We have a PDF parser. We have an email parser. We can take data from Slack channels, from Twitter channels. we can integrate into everything. And now what we're doing in the normalization process is we are bringing the data to a common language. And in our platform, in our database, our object model follows the STIX 1.2 object model. So for those of you who are familiar with sticks, you already realize the objects that are in there. We see adversaries, we see campaigns, we see events, we see malware, we see indicators, etc., etc. So whatever information piece we are getting from a feed, we are automatically putting that piece of information into the right objects. We might have feeds that are just bringing us indicators, like IP addresses, FQDNs, hash values, etc. So those information would go into the indicators. But if we are incorporating sources like MITRE ATT&CK, we get much more and much deeper information about the adversaries, about the motivations, about their TTPs, etc., etc. So normalizing it, bringing to a common language, first step. The second step is we are deduplicating the data. Because when you're using multiple threat feeds simultaneously, you will obviously get redundant data. And I don't want to have an IP address that's seen as malicious 5 times in my database. I only want to have it once, but I want to keep the information from how many and from which data sources this information comes in. So we are deduplicating the data. And the final thing that we are doing is we are aggregating the data. So we are putting together pieces of puzzles and make the big picture. One example on that, we might get information about a certain attacker group from one source. Let's take APT28, which is very well known. So one source tells us information about APT28, and we might get some related indicators with that adversary. Another source is giving us different indicators on this adversary, but unfortunately, they are not using the name APT28, but they are using an alias name, Fancy Beer. So we have the intelligence to know APT28 and Fancy Beer is the same adversary, and now we are aggregating all this information about a single adversary group. Talking a lot, but I would really like to understand you what fundamental features are needed to take the first steps in threat intelligence and finally to get the value out of threat intelligence. So normalizing, deduplicating, aggregating. And then we are moving through a couple of other things. I don't want to talk too much about that because of time reason. The only thing I want to mention here is the scoring. As I said before, finding relevant threats is the most essential part in working with threat data. And we want to give you a platform to filter out these relevant threats. And I'm not talking too much about that because Falk will show you how the scoring works in our platform and how we are filtering out relevant threats for a specific area, like the automotive security, for a specific company, etc., etc. So a couple of other things I will skip over. And now, what we are having now is a clean subset of threat intelligence. What we are having now is a subset of data that is relevant for me and have these three things that I mentioned before, the art of turning threat data into threat intelligence. The data we are having after these processes is accurate, it's relevant, and well, timeliness obviously depends on the speed of the feed, but normally you're getting the data really in a timely manner. So now we have threat intelligence, and now we can work with the data. And also, I'm going through this pretty quick because most of this is probably IT related, but mentioning just some of the use cases what we can do now. So now we want to work with that data in our infrastructure. So the first thing what we can do is we can connect to a CM technology or any log analysis tool. So I'm not sure if you're using SIEM technologies in your environment. I'm also very new to this automotive security area, and I'm really thrilled to learn more about that. But a CM technology is basically looking in the log files of my network. Do I see a specific indicator? So, for example, we are having now a subset of malicious IP addresses that are relevant to me, and now I can push these IP addresses to my CM technology and tell the CM, hey, please start looking for these IP addresses in the log files. And now, if the CM picks up one or more of these IP addresses, or as we say, it has a sighting, it would report that information back into the threat queue platform. So we are not just pushing out data and off you go, but we are monitoring, is there feedback from the sensors? Because if the CM finds something in the network, wow, there's an indicator that the attacker might already be in my network. And this information must be fed back, this is the feedback loop, as new information into the platform so I can make the right decisions, right? So CM log analysis tool, great tools to find now indicators. Is there already a threat in my network? I'm skipping the integration into firewalls now, but what I want to talk is about vulnerabilities. And this is obviously very important and very applicable to your environment, because technology is getting more and more complex. In some parts, we are moving to standard components because of costs effect, and now we certainly have a similar or even the same vulnerabilities in our automotive related components that we have in our IT environment, right? So these have vulnerabilities. They can be attacked. No software is perfect, right? And now, obviously, the threat, and this is where you guys doing a great job, is making the cars secure. And you need to find out, are there vulnerabilities? Can these vulnerabilities be attacked? And how we could help you here, as we said, we are just at the beginning to evaluate that and finding the use cases. But in theory, if you have a technology that can find the vulnerabilities in your components, and maybe you're also working with the standard CVE numeration, so vulnerabilities are classified as CVE XYZ. If you have these technologies that are detecting vulnerabilities, we can connect this information with current attacks. So let's assume this afternoon we will receive a feed. There's a new malware outbreak. There's a new malware seen. This malware is targeting a specific vulnerability, CVE number XYZ. So this is information we are getting from the feeds. Now I need to decide very quickly, is this relevant for me? Do I have a vulnerability in my network or in my component that could be attacked by this malware? And this is exactly what we are doing. We are bringing these two worlds together. So what we can do is we can query a local vulnerability assessment tool. Standard tools are from Tenable, Nessus might say something to you, Rapid7, Qualys, etc. So those are all technologies that detect vulnerabilities in networks or even components. So we can query those tools. Let's take Nessus, because Nessus is very widespread. So we can connect to the Nessus vulnerability database and ask Nessus, hey Nessus, do we have this vulnerability anywhere in my network or in my components? If yes, Nessus would report back to us, Marcus, yes, this is the list of IP addresses where I have seen this vulnerability open. And now I have a relevance. I know there is something coming. My threat intelligence feeds, they are my tsunami early warning system. They tell me, hey, listen, we've seen something, there's something coming. And with the integration of ThreatQ into local systems, we see, yes, we have vulnerabilities, and we can give you this information within seconds. So now we know there's something coming. We have a vulnerability that's open. We need to do something, right? We need to patch it if patching is possible. If not, we probably need to disconnect it from the network. We need to close a port on a firewall in order for the malware not to get through. So several things we could do now, but we are aware there's something going on and we need to do something, and we can give you this information very quickly. A lot of talking, but I think the use case with the vulnerabilities is a very interesting one, and we are seeing this use case within most of our customers. So I spent a little time on that. So the other the other stories around integration into other tools like orchestration or ticketing systems, incident response, case management systems, sandbox systems, etc., etc. There are many, many more use cases, and we could spend another hour talking about these. But I hope I gave you an overview what the ThreatQ platform is. We are the central and local threat intelligence service, and we are making sure that right and relevant threat data is at the right place, the right time, so you can derive the right actions. Okay, so final slide from my side, and I'm going over this really, really quickly. We talked a lot about a specific process, which is the threat intelligence management process. And this is obviously the most important one. If you can't get that process right, if you can't find the right and the relevant threat data, you will not see value out of threat intelligence. This is the most important process that we want to get under control. But it also works across other processes. These might not be so relevant maybe in your environment. So these are IT, probably IT specific, maybe not. I'm still learning about, and I'm happy to receive feedback. But threat hunting, incident response, spear phishing, yeah, that's very IT related. Alert triage, a very interesting use case. If you see an alarm messages, is this a false positive or not? Vulnerability management, and many more processes that we can make faster and more efficient. There's more information, and we're happy to on the websites on these, and we're obviously happy to share the slides with everyone if that's possible. John, I didn't ask that. We'll figure that out later. And now I talked a lot. It was a lot of information. So I hope you are still with me. I didn't lose you. And with that, I would like to hand over the flight stick to my wingman, Falk. And we will jump into the live platform and see what I just talked about.
Thank you, Marcus.
Pleasure.
As always. So, I just try to share my screen, and I do hope you can all see something. Do you? Yes?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you, because I don't see this here on my screen. So, what you see here is a demo platform. You do see the landing page of the ThreatQ Threat Intelligence platform, and for me, I don't want to talk an hour or something. My plan is to give you a short introduction into the platform, around about 20 minutes. And obviously, the main task is for me to show you how I can turn threat data into threat intelligence, and make this actionable threat intelligence the most relevant threat intelligence for the specific customer. So, and this all starts with the sources where the information comes from, the threat data comes from, additional information comes from. And this is, you find here an example for my platform here. You find on the left-hand side bottom under incoming intelligence. And this is also one of the parts we try to figure out with John for your platform. What's the most relevant source for you, or what are the most relevant sources for you um, to trigger and to consume information from? For me, it's here in this case an open source like the National Vulnerability Database coming up with vulnerability information. Then I do have a couple of information or feeds from Group IB, which is paid source. I do have emerging threats, and I do have connected UAssert alerts. This is something, this is information, feed information I collect on a regular basis. But the platform is, like Marcus said, open. So if I just click here on the create button, you will quickly see that we are capable of importing via the indicator parser manually. We can put in signatures. We can connect to email boxes and collect spearfish information. And we do have a sticks parser. So the platform is really open and can tune to your specific needs. So as an example how indicators of compromise can come in and how the related information might turn out in this database, I picked out two indicators. One is this IP address. And what you can see here is pretty much the value, that it's an IP address and when it came in, and when it expires according to our lifecycle management. But other than that, apart from the source itself, you don't find any other information. So for me, right, it's something I have to deal with otherwise. Either go for connect to other tools and gather additional information to make this more relevant, or just leave it behind, or or I need to have a mechanism to say, okay, this is, I don't want to say it's garbage, but it's noise, right? And I don't have to relate to it by now. So if I go back to the second indicator, you will see there is a little bit more information related to it. So you do see here 3 different sources delivering information, and it all adds up to a completely different picture. You can see here an open source feed telling that they believe that this FQDN is active. This is good to know, right? But it doesn't really help me in determine is this really relevant information for me for now, right? But if I do look for a phishing attack, if I'm informed that my specific vertical is prone to phishing, then it's more relevant. And if the attributes of the source and of the indicator are delivering this information, I'm far more in the direction of threat intel. Plus, all the capabilities we deliver within the threat intelligence platform. They link to a campaign, link to different events delivering this information, the linkage to incidents and to related indicators, plus the link to TTPs. So this all gives a totally different picture compared to the first indicator. So if I would go back to the landing page again, you would see here that it's that I do have a total of 937,000 indicators in my system. So this is even if it's a small system, as I said, I do have it at home, right? But this is a number I don't want to deal with. I want to have information related to me, and I want to have information which is 28 indicators. Hey, this is something I can deal with, right? And even if I take indicators scored from 8 to 10, then it might be 300 or 500. That's a totally different number, and that's a totally different amount, and it might be more related to me. So the question is, how can I get this result? And I want to show you this right away. This is something we do with data management, and Marcus talked about this. And under data management, you find first the lifecycle management, and this is a mechanism which every customer can tune to himself, where he's saying, okay, this indicator from this source is active within my system for this and this long. So Marcus always is talking about IP addresses, right, from CNC service. So if there is a specific campaign, they launch it and then they go through different domains. So maybe this CNC server, this IP address you get from your source is active a maximum for 7 days. So there is no need to keep it active in your system for month and month. And with this information, then always telling your community, oh yeah, I know of an IP address and there is a phishing campaign and stuff. And all the others are saying, you know what, they are gone for a month. What are you telling me now? So that's lifecycle management. The other thing is scoring. So again, we can differentiate where we score, which approach we using. So in my example, I never used the indicator type. I went straight to indicator source. So, and this is a pretty simple theme I'm using here. I simply say, okay, if it's an open source delivering information and I don't get any additional information which is allowing me to judge that it's relevant for me, like the IP address you saw before, then it's a 1, right? Like here. If I do have a open source which is delivering additional information where I can see at least a certain content, I give it a 2. If it's a commercial source which is giving me all the other related information, like you saw in the FQDN example, where they told me they believe with high confidence that it's active and that it's a phishing domain, then I give it a 3. And basically, in the end, if I put myself information in, like the CERT team here, I give it a 4 because I trust myself the most. So that's the main and basic scoring. And this is leading to the under 1% high important indicators in the system, getting rid of over 900,000 indicators I don't look at the moment. So, but usually I want to be more concrete, right? I want to have the most relevant information for me. And if my sources deliver these information, like you saw before, the confidence is high. Or if I say, okay, in terms of vulnerabilities, we are automotive, right? We don't have any Mac OS X. So we put this filter part in and say, you know what? If I get information about vulnerabilities and that it's related to Mac OS X, I don't care. But if I get information that the target industry is automotive, and I do have, for example, in my cars, like I heard that that there is a certain vendor saying or using for this his Wi-Fi a malware chipset, right? Then I put this in and I look specifically for this what's interesting me specifically, right? And then I can fine tune the scoring, and with this scoring, I reach a value like you saw before, that I can get rid of most of all the indicators in the system. I don't delete it. They are still in the system. If I do get additional information later on or from different sources, right? It's an ongoing process, like my colleague said. So that's one way, or that's half the way to get relevant threat intel. The other way is, and this is what Marcus mentioned, the way we store our data and additional information in the database. And you do see here lots of database objects. And that's also a within our project to establish the threat queue with ASRG, that we need to talk what is relevant for you as database objects, which are relevant information for you, how what are the sources you connect to, how you want to have the information in. So in order to show you a little bit of something, I just try to show you what's how the relationship management inside is working, how we put the information together. So what I did was I created a search. And like you can see here, right, the search is nothing else as going over all database objects and simply look for a keyword, which is automotive. So what you see here now, we find, because of the relationship building, 18 adversaries, one campaign, one event, stuff like this. So what I can do immediately is I can build a dashboard. So, and again, right, I prepared something. So this dashboard is simply based on this really easy to generate search. I look for related indicators. I look for the score these indicators have. I look for the related malware associated to the automotive industry and to related adversaries, right? Here, if I click on this, I do see vulnerabilities. And if I click further to this specific vulnerability, I will see why it's associated to this dashboard. Because it's malware chipset and it's related to an issue with the Tesla Model S. So that's the way we work. And going back to the dashboard, another example why it is a good way to summarize the information. APT 32 here under related adversaries. If I look a little bit closer, I do see here again the exact same information. Which sources reported about this adversary? What's the description? What do I have for in order attributes? Right here, I do see the reason why it's here. And if I look for relationships, I do see attack patterns. I do see a campaign where they are explicitly mentioned. So apparently, FireEye was reporting about this this campaign, saying, okay, they saw that Toyota in this case was specifically targeted. So we will find this information here. And this was all brought together under a dashboard. So yeah, and my last point for today in introducing you shortly into the capabilities of the ThreatQ platform is you saw the indicators, you saw additional information, you saw the library, how it's put together. But what we thought was a much better way to see how it comes all together is a graphical way. Therefore, we introduced an additional module, which is called investigations. And this is what you see here. And again, it's only an example to show you how it all comes together. So basically, the starting point for this investigation was that somebody received a PDF talking about a specific campaign. By creating the file within the ThreatQ platform, the campaign was created. Parsing out the document was giving the information about the indicators. This links automatically to information from different sources about the same campaign, about the same incident. But by linking the different sources, different information sources together, we also have here because of this is linked to a TTP called phishing, we do have from MITRE ATT&CK, the information of the attack vectors and the courses of action, stuff like this. And they also link us to a possible adversary who's known to use this kind of attack vector. He's also known to use this kind of malware. With this kind of malware, we have from a source called Malpedia, the information, what can I do in terms of hunting to get rid of this malware? And the really cool thing is, because I really can adjust this database to my specific information, I can create my own course of action so that I can say, within my company, what do I need to do if this thing occurs? It might be malware, it might be a specific attack, it might be a specific campaign, it might be a vulnerability I have to deal with. I can define it, and then I can then in my community share my process. But if I do have systems connected to my threat intelligence platform, asking me, do you have any indication of an attack? Do you have knowledge about a specific indicator? And I do have my threat intelligence platform linking all the information together. I can easily send this additional information to the requestee and say, okay, you know what? We have this information, and by the way, we can tell you easily how you get rid of the incident. So yeah, and like I promised, 20 minutes. That's ThreatQ in short and demo.
All right, great. Thank you, Falk. Thank you, Marcus, as well. First of all, if you do have questions for Marcus or Falk, or if you'd like to see something in the ThreatQ platform, please go ahead and type your questions into the live chats. Then I can ask Marcus and Falk here as well. Falk, Marcus, thank you very much for the nice overview of threat intelligence and in the platform as well. Actually, I'm really looking forward to understand how to create relevance for automotive. You talked a little bit about this art type intelligence, accuracy, relevance, and timely. And for me, it's going to be very interesting how to build relevance for automotive intelligence because, like you said, intelligence needs to be something that's inside, each company, right? This needs to be the responsibility of each of the companies. And how to create relevance is usually based on the product itself, right? So for us, we have vehicles, and each vehicle has, like Falk showed as well, has many different assets. And these assets, like parts or software, so hardware, software, open source software, all these different things could create relevance for particular vehicles. So I'm interested to see how this works out in the future. And that this will be something that ASRG can provide the industry as well is relevant information for vehicles, for the automotive products. So thank you very much for that. We're looking forward to working together in the future.
Pleasure.
So I don't see any questions coming up in the live chat. I'm going to give a few more minutes, but I have a question for you guys. In the automotive industry, we are focused on preventing risk. We try to reduce our risk in the field by removing risk as early in the development cycle as we can. And we do this by evaluating risk at the beginning. So when we have an architecture, whatever, we do risk assessments and everything to understand or to try and reduce the risk. However, when the products are in fields, that people are driving them around, it's this threat intelligence that helps us understand what type of risk we have in field, right? The question for me is, how can we take threat intelligence and build it back into into our products? So how do we use threat intelligence to affect the design?
I, I can take that, Volker. You can add if you want. I think so. Again, this is also very new and a very new area for me. But I think the most relevant and most important part for you would be is to be informed if there is a vulnerability out there that you might not be aware. I mean, as I said before, the cars and the technologies are getting more and more complex, and there are vulnerabilities everywhere. So no software, no component is free of vulnerabilities, and we might not be aware of these vulnerabilities once we are starting to use these components and software. So one critical thing would be to get informed if a new vulnerability is discovered, so you can take the appropriate actions. But even more importantly, I think it's important for you to get informed if there is an exploit out there targeting a specific vulnerability that could be in your components, right? And this is about what I said before, using as much data sources as possible to get the information if it becomes public. As fast as possible, so you can then take the appropriate measures. That's what I see as a very important thing on threat intelligence, getting informed about vulnerabilities that we have not seen in the risk assessment from the beginning, and also new exploits that are targeting vulnerabilities that could affect our systems, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And for me, this is always a topic of priority, right? By using threat intelligence, we can understand what priority which issue has and where we ultimately can focus our resources, whatever that might be. So, um, I would love to ask the question, Folk. I, there's so many so many interesting things going on in automotive right now regarding threat intelligence. And I was wondering, you saw this Tesla thing? Is there other stuff that you can see in the the threat intelligence that you did some searching before?
What I did today was I started with a commercial feed, basically, and looking for their labeling. There were some information, but not this much. But from this, I probably did the same you do on a daily basis, right? I was like looking for Uncle Google to help me, and found a reference to the vulnerability report describing there is CanSoft or something, a page which is related to automotive, and having the in the last years some of reports where vulnerabilities occur, threat where they analyzed where there should be a threat risk, and they informed the respective vendors, but they had a block, and this was the basis for my intel then. Creating PDF, putting it into the platform, parsing it out for indicators, and like you saw in the demonstration, the initial information for the vulnerability came from the National Vulnerability Database. I had the PDF as a second source, and then it all came together regarding what was the reason, what's the backstory, and honestly, the information I found regarding this Marvel chip, I couldn't find a solution for this. It should be still an open vulnerability.
Yeah, that's really interesting, especially when we have vulnerabilities in hardware. Not so easy to send an update to fix a hardware issue
Yeah,
without turning off the function.
yeah, and I don't know if it really was with if it was a mistake by writing, but what I saw in the report there was, oh yeah, they took a really cheap chipset. Yeah, so sometimes it was like this, right? And yeah, you saw the report why it was happening. I remember it was a year ago in the news that they could hack it, and that was the whole reason. And then the important thing I think is why we also say it's about threat intel, and intelligence in this case means all the important pieces coming together. It's not, I mean, yeah, you don't need the point where you say, okay, there's a vulnerability. You need to know exactly where it is, and probably if there's a chance to get rid of it by an vendor update, or if you have to construct around, right, and have a workaround to yeah, and having this then also, or the capability to have this in your platform and have the notion of it and be capable to inform your community about this.
Oh. And in the automotive industry, it's a little bit different. I mean, when we talk about IT related cybersecurity, we're talking usually about software. I mean, there is hardware stuff, but when we talk about automotive, we're really talking about a lot of different assets. We're slowly moving in this direction where we have more and more software, and really operating systems also. These applications being built on Linux or automotive grade Linux or something like this. Um, I we we rely on many different suppliers, and when we start talking about suppliers like Bosch or Conti or don't know, but these these organizations could be, they know their product, what they've developed best, and they could be that source of information for as an input, a feed into the threat intelligence platform like ASRG. And this is something that ASRG is also starting to discuss with the suppliers, not only like Bosch or Conti, where they're developing products, but also directly at the chip suppliers, where these chip suppliers are not only being able to understand their chips, they know which vulnerabilities, which risks are involved, and that this information, this intelligence, is already for us relevant, it's accurate, and hopefully provided in a timely manner.
Yeah.
So when we talked about this art type data intelligence, I was thinking that, well, why not get the information directly from the source? And how does this work in the IT industry? Why are the suppliers not, or are they providing intelligence feeds for hardware or specific software or something like this?
It depends. I can comment on that. We see not every week, but every other week we see huge announcements about, wow, vulnerability found in this component, in this software, etc., etc. You can get root access, on a specific router because there's a vulnerability. So the way companies work is, obviously not every new vulnerability that is found is disclosed publicly, and one of the reasons is obviously is if you announce it publicly, also the bad guys can jump on it and program and exploit and go after that. I can't tell you how they decide on, what do we want to make public. Probably it's if it's a huge thing that we need to make everyone aware of immediately, but there's some of them they would like to keep undisclosed until they already provided a fix, not to make the bad guys aware of. If you know what I mean. In your environment, and I think, and I'm just thinking out loud now. I think it's all about sharing this information in a trusted community. So if I'm a chip manufacturer and I know this chip is used in a lot of car manufacturers and a lot of components or cars in general, I probably would like to inform this group about this vulnerability, but I don't want to disclose it into the public in order to make the bad guys aware of it, right? And this is what it's called then, a trusted sharing community, and we are seeing that already in several sectors. For example, in the finance industry. And I hope I'm not talking a lot, but I need to mention MISP again, the Malware Information Sharing Platform project. MISP, as many of you probably know, is an open source technology. It's an EU project. And as the word says, malware information sharing, it is a platform where I can share information about threats in a trusted community. And as I said, we see this in sectors like finance. So I don't want to mention any names, but three German banks. In essence, they are competitors, but when it comes to cybersecurity, they are working together. So what we are seeing is, I set up a instance in each of these three companies, and when I find something, a threat, I can share this in a trusted community with just my peers, and I can make sure this information is not leaked into the public. Thinking out loud now, what we are trying to do now is, not sure if we can get there. We're just starting. But this could lead into a trusted sharing community within the automotive group, and this might be also could become a platform for manufacturers to participate in this sharing community, saying, guys, I found something, but I want to know who receives this information. This is a trusted community. So I put it on the ASRG threat intel platform, and everyone can get this information as fast as possible, if that makes sense.
Yeah, actually, I have to admit the question was a little loaded, because the Auto ISAC is already providing this type of trusted community. Um, so the Auto ISAC is doing this, or they have this community built up that's trusted, and they're providing that. So um, that's a good point, that the Auto ISAC could be that community as well. I do have a question here from Darshan. How can vulnerabilities be handled at OS level, which is shipped in the hardware products? So How
handled in the sense of patching or how to avoid an attack on that. So what's meant by handled?
uh, so if I understand Darshan correctly, so we have chips that come with software already on them. You know, there's some kind of driver related software. It could be you know, not really OS related. It could be anything, just software that's written into these chips to help the operation or function as it is. And I believe so be handled at level, which is shipped in the hardware product. And I guess the point here is that even though we have hardware, there's also software included in a lot of the parts we have in automotive. And is there a way that these chip manufacturers can also identify vulnerabilities or give threat indicators maybe? Um, I think the answer is yes, but I'm not quite sure where the question is going.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we certainly can't help to remediate that problem
Mhm.
directly, right? So we can't patch or anything. We are just working with data. You know, we can shift data, we can filter data, we can make people aware. However, and this is where I probably need to learn more. What we can do is obviously we can start processes. So this is now just you know, an example from the IT world, and you guys need to educate us on that. But in the IT world, companies are working with case management and ticketing system, right? So if we taking that use case before about a vulnerability that's currently exploited, and we found that this company has this vulnerability open on these systems, what we could do is we could connect to a ticketing system. So we could open a ticket. We could put all the related information about the attack, about the vulnerable systems into this ticket, and then, according to the company's workflow, this ticket will go to a responsible person who's taking the action. Right, so we can start processes, but obviously we would need to look deeper what the individual processes are, and does that make sense from our perspective.
Okay.
Not sure if you answered that question, but we were happy. So what was the name? Darshan? Sorry, I didn't catch the name.
Darshan.
Yeah, Darshan. If you so you have our contact details. You can find us on LinkedIn, Markus Auer and Falk Schwendike, or email markus.auer@threadq.com or falkschwendike@threadq.com. Happy contact us directly, and we can have an individual discussion.
Great. All right. Very good. Hans was also saying something about never mind. It's, it's clarified. Um, so I think that's probably uh, the end of our discussion today. I want to thank you guys, first of all. Would you guys like to say something before we close?
Not really. Thank you to you, John. It was a pleasure having you here, and so thanks for having us. And as I said, we are thrilled to move forward in that project and see how that evolves, and hopefully can create something useful for your community. No, just in general, as I already said, if anyone has any cyber threat intelligence related question, happy to contact us directly and have an individual discussion. So yeah, thank you. Falk?
Yeah, same for me. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Great. Marcus, Falk, thank you very much for the presentation today, the webinar. As you said, you're you're available to be contacted. If you can make the presentation available, I will add the link in the YouTube description probably tomorrow, that everybody can also have the webinar slides. Guys, please do not forget, next week we also have Mirko. He's going to show us or talk to us about trusted environments, especially in the mobility field when we're talking about how vehicles are talking with infrastructure and the whole environment. So looking forward to that. I hope you guys join next week as well. So thank you very much from my side. And Falk, Marcus, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great evening, a great day.
You
You
as
too.
well.
Bye.
Okay, bye.